course, we in this week that is actually coming up. So obviously an enormous week in sport. For those that don't know, they've got this little event in America that's coming up called the Super Bowl. And then I thought, well, every Tuesday, if we can dive deeper into people that we can learn off, and I don't just want to scratch the surface and marvel at every things on the outside. You really want to dig deeper and go, okay, what are the things that when we do Walk With Me, how can we learn from these people, and how can we incorporate it into what we do in our everyday version of life and everyday version of ourselves. And I must say, it was actually he is probably one of my favourite sportsmen or favourite people on the planet. But there's no man in the last 20 years that's probably had as big a say in the NFL, and in particular Super Bowl week and Super Bowl itself than Tom Brady. Now, like I said, what we want to do, we want to try and break down some of the habits that Brady's actually carried out over the last 20 years, and to be able to, and I'd recommend this to anyone out there that's actually going to watch this and you're trying to learn, you're trying to get better. I think when I have to actually do something like this, and I've actually got some notes in my hand, so I'm not exactly reading all this off the top of my head, but I've actually got to remember it. Actually have Tony Robbins' words ringing in my ears that if you're going to speak about something, maybe learn it as if you're going to teach it. So, but it was also pretty cool to be able to sit down and analyze one of my favorite people on the planet in Tom Brady. And one of the first ones that comes up with Tom Brady is probably the word resilience. Now, he started his college at Michigan State, and even at Michigan State, and this is where I love like digging deeper into why I actually really love Tom Brady, because love him in an athlete way, of course, is that when you hear the story, it's not as if he started off from the top like he was the number one draft pick. I think that would be the biggest misconception about Brady, that you see where he's ended up now, this week playing in his 10th Super Bowl, going for number 7. If he wins this week, he's won more Super Bowls than any team in the competition, which is pretty crazy. But I love the stories about how he started off. And it's such a, I end up teaching some kids with some footy every Wednesday. And I know I'm going to tell them this story, that he started well and truly down the pecking order, even at Michigan when he first started. Like he was second or third back up there. And then even at that point, he hired a psychologist at that time. And it just showed you his mindset, that even in college, about where he wanted to go, that he didn't really want to accept the situation. He wanted to say, okay, this is where I am now, but what are the tools and what are the things I'm going to add to make sure that I can get to where I want to go. And then for those that don't know the back history of Tom Brady, so if I probably asked everyone a question where he got drafted, now I know there's probably a number of the guys on here that maybe know where he got drafted. And again, I think it's just a great, just because that is the current situation of where you are doesn't mean that is going to end up where you're going to go or where you want to go. Tom Brady, and it's become and for those out there, I highly recommend it. There's a documentary on it as well, an ESPN documentary. That Tom Brady got drafted 199 in the draft, and there were 6 which is quite funny now because there were 6 quarterbacks drafted before him, and he's gone on to win 6 Super Bowls. He's won a ring for every quarterback that was drafted in front of him in that famous draft. I think it was in the year 2000. And then again, this is all under resilience and how he was able to, from a mindset point of view. Then he was drafted to New England. Now, even when he got to New England, he was the backup starter for Drew Bledsoe and had to spend a year basically just, learning his craft, biding his time, in terms of, waiting in the pecking order in order for him to be ready in the NFL. But then that's probably on to the next one. You talk about opportunity. So that's probably the next, and that's probably relevant for all of us. Like, you talk about opportunity, and as I said, he spent the entire year as a backup for Drew Bledsoe. And during that time, just, worked his ass off, did everything, and made sure that whenever his moment come, that he was actually going to be ready for it. And it was just after September 11 in 2001 was actually a date that probably changed the NFL forever when you really think about it. That Friday, September 23, there was Drew Bledsoe went down with an injury. And to this point, Tom Brady had not played a snap in the NFL. He went in for, I think, for the remaining snaps of that game against the New York Jets. And then he went on to play the next 14 games. And it was funny, when he actually told his high school coach after getting drafted, he basically told his high school coach, he said, look, if I ever get the chance to start in the NFL, the Patriots will never go back to Drew Bledsoe. So he's had this amazing belief in himself, but also he'd done the work. That's a big lesson for everyone. If you do the work, you don't know when your opportunity is actually going to come. And sure enough, that season, so he got his start, played the next 14 games, and the Patriots won their first Super Bowl. So it all came. You talk about changing the landscape of American football for the next 20 years. Well, that was it in one foul swoop. And that's what I keep coming back to. When you do an enormous amount of work, you do get rewarded for it. Like, you keep doing the work, and then eventually you don't know when your time is. It's probably no different to, you know what I mean? Like, people talk about Steve Bradbury in Australia and he was lucky. But when you know the backstory about Steve Bradbury, and again, it's the journey, it's the hard work, it's all the things that they do to get to that point is amazing. So, and again, all you need is then a chance, some sort of chance, and then knowing that you've actually put the work in, and all of a sudden you take your chance, and then look what happened. The NFL actually changed forever. Now, I think the biggest one with Tom Brady that hits me when I actually had to undertake this exercise, in the end, it's his willingness to do the things that others won't. So from a preparation point of view, there is, put it this way, he is 43 years old and he is playing in the Super Bowl now. It's just all these different facets that go into, and again, these are things that all you guys can control as well. Like, again, we always talk about when we do the walks about what tools can we add to our kit bag. Everything I've told you thus far about Tom Brady, about, everyone's got resilience. Like, everyone's come through the back of COVID. A lot of people have done the walk with me. That's showing a bit of resilience yourself. And then you go, okay, what are the things that I can add? Again, that's all we keep on saying. What tools can we add in the kit bag that are going to enable us to thrive in any situation? And I think what's the other one? His lifestyle and his habits. Look, he dared. That was the other thing too. When you hear of elite performers, sometimes they dare to question the status quo. So Tom Brady, in the end, you either accept. Yes, it's important. Like when you go into sporting or organisations or any organisation, you accept that, hey, that's the way they do things. But what he also did, he created this. He went and got his own trainer, because he just, the way that he was going, the traditional doing weights, the traditional way that they were telling him to do things didn't work. And in the end, he went and got his own trainer that did things a little bit different. And he also, he changed like all facets of how he prepared things. So he has avocado ice cream, which doesn't sound that attractive. But again, you talk about all the little things in your preparation that I would teach, or what I try and teach the kids with the group of kids that I'm coaching at the moment, just how important that preparation is. And again, it highlights with someone like Tom Brady and the way he goes about it, that on the physical side, he went and got his own trainer. Like, why? Organisation, go and get your own. Like, all you guys can, if you want to take your fitness goals to a new level. Yeah, it's great. You might do these walks, but what's the next challenge? Do you want to get a trainer that's then going to drive you to another level? Well, that's all that Tom Brady did as well. There's another famous, there's a guy called Rodney Harrison who Tom Brady used to try and outwork him. Now, Rodney Harrison is a very, very famous linebacker in the NFL that was known for his work ethic. Regardless of what time Rodney Harrison ever got in the gym, Tom Brady always made sure that he got there before him. So he always made sure every time that Rodney Harrison would actually walk into the gym, it was always a good afternoon, but it was always that a little bit of that competitive streak about how am I going to, how am I going to prepare better than anyone else? And in particular, Rodney Harrison, he was known for his work ethic. So he would still try and be known as outworking someone that already had a great work ethic. And I think the other thing that comes through is even just in his everyday practice was like a game. Like, even I know different players that I played football with, that some players just treat practice as a chore, or you got the great players that really use the opportunity of practice to get better. And I think whether it's, as we keep mentioning, whether it's just going for a walk today, that's one opportunity to get better. What are all the opportunities that you can actually use to go and get better? And the other thing is, I think with Tom Brady, the thing that I noticed, there is no off season. Like, it just becomes like a way of life. I know, I know many of you have made changes in terms of your lives and losing weight and things like that. In the end, that just becomes your way of life. And I think that was the thing that also come through when I had to analyze it. And then how can we learn from it? It just becomes the norm, that your way you go about things. What are the other ones? There was, I think, the unwavering belief that he has in himself. When Tom Brady first went into the Patriots, he walked up to Robert Kraft. So imagine doing this on the first day that you're drafted into an organization, sports club, or even in business. You walk in and tell the boss, "Hey, this is the best decision that your organization has ever made." Now, it's a pretty ballsy move, but it just goes to show, even at that, you nearly need that bit of a healthy ego and a bit of healthy belief in yourself. But it's, when you look back at it, it probably, it's fair to say 6 Super Bowls later that it wasn't a bad wasn't a bad choice that the Patriots made. And I think even in these big moments, like it's quite interesting when you look at all elite athletes, and I mean, you look at their ability to whether they perform under pressure, can execute under pressure. It's not as if they do special things. Yeah, sometimes it is, but when you really break it down, it's really just them executing basic skills really well. And again, a lot of that then still comes back to your preparation. Like, you find that just becomes a direct reflection of preparation. Like when you talk about Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, all of them have this crazy work ethic that, yes, at the end of the day, we see them do some ridiculous things, but in the end, when you dumb it down, it really is just their ability. I'm just about to get nearly hit by a bus driver here. It really is their ability, I think, just to do basics really, really well, regardless of the situation and even the circumstances, that where they can slow it down and just break it down to like a single skill. No different to what Nathan Chapman would probably. I was hoping that Nathan might have been on here today. That really even it goes behind one of the things that they do. Where in their practice, they go up to Mount Buller. They practice the possibility that they could end up be punting in the snow, so that when they go across to America, it's not a foreign situation. So that's also, again, preparing, for game-like situations and practicing in them. The other ones, what else come through? I think it's this insane this competitiveness that even for Tom Brady started in high school. Like, he'd basically get all his teammates over the house to study film. So you can see this competitiveness and this will and want to get better had started at such a young age. And in the end, you think of that competitiveness as well. Who else in the history? No one else in the history of the game. So I think before Tom Brady, when they were down in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, so I'm sorry if there's any Atlanta Falcons out there to remind you of this nightmare. The Atlanta Falcons at one point were up 28-3 in the Super Bowl. Now, the biggest comeback before that, I think, in any playoff game might have been 12 points. But of course, the Patriots came back because you had this competitive, like this refusal, the competitive spirit, and this refusal to lose from any situation that Tom Brady was able to execute on the biggest stage of them all, like 28-3. And that was in the middle of the third quarter, I'm pretty sure. So I might have to check that. I might be slightly wrong. But either way, it was 25 points down in the biggest game of them all. Now, when we talk about, and also going into, okay, so he won 6 Super Bowls with the New England Patriots. So you win 6. At this point, he would have been just over 40 years old. I think he would have been. What does he have to gain? He has absolutely nothing to gain whatsoever. But it's also a part of that mantra of always having a point to prove, like always having a chip on your shoulder and trying to find a reason to prove. If it's not anything, it's about proving to himself. It's probably not proving to anyone else. It's probably that continual, how am I going to challenge myself? How am I going to find new challenges? And then he goes to Tampa Bay. And I think the other thing that can't be underestimated, and I often say this when football teams or organisations So probably when you chase even really good people and you want to get them into your organisation, sometimes it's not just the fact that, yes, they can bring something special, but the one thing that they do, and the biggest thing that Tom Brady has done at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it just raises the standards, raise the standard, raise the expectation. See Tom Brady getting there early, first thing in the morning, seeing going through his preparation, that then just rubs off on the entire organisation from a preparation point of view. And then obviously once you get into games, it's, hey, well, you expect to win. That's the expectation. So to be able to leave somewhere like the Patriots, he really had nothing to prove. You know what? He may have wanted to prove to himself that it wasn't just all Bill Belichick, that the Belichick and Tom Brady attached at the hip. It was just one more time, a point to prove. And once again, I don't think he has. I think he's proved it once again that playing with that chip on his shoulder and that point to prove has been amazing. And one last one before I throw it open to the floor for a few questions. Someone at Michigan State, I think one of the athletic trainers, I think, had a story, and when he was talking to Tom Brady, when Brady might have asked him what was his favourite ring. I think Michigan at that point were famous for winning championships, and he said, "What's your favourite?" And I think Tom Brady's actually taken on this as well. He said, he was asked, well, what's your favourite ring? And he said, well, the next one. And I think he's had that, like all these different things added up across the journey, I think, to be able to learn a lot of life lessons in terms of resilience, in terms of preparation, raising the standards. There are just so many things that you can actually learn, but I think you can tell it is one of my favourites because he didn't start as a number one draft pick. And it's a great lesson for anyone, where, like, even especially kids maybe think that if you're not drafted in the top 10, or you're not, you know what I mean, it doesn't define you where you should end up. And that's why I think from a story point of view, it's such a great story for anyone in life about absolutely working their ass off and doing everything in their power that they can prepare and put themselves in the best position possible, that even if it is just to take your one single chance, that you be ready.